the sixth branch of the armed forces.
Anyone can tell you the news.
We welcome Diamond and Silk.
Mark Zuckerberg going to end up, and it's going to be a face without the book.
Book without the face.
Hey, Megan, how are you?
Now they're chipping away at the normalization of pedophilia, and the left is embracing this type of behavior.
We welcome Dinesh D'Souza.
I know I ticked him off. In a certain sense, it's a giant up yours to Obama, and that's why the left is freaking out over it.
Jack Kennedy and LBJ, Clinton, and the double standard from the left.
Yeah, I love how the left does nothing but push the most bizarre practices down our throats and up our tailpipes.
It takes a real man to tackle the hot issues that really matter.
Michael Hart is the man of this house.
Welcome to the Michael Hart Show.
Good morning. It is the 18th day of December 2018, and we are 1 week away from Christmas. Yes, the President of the United States is expected to sign an order creating a U.S. Space Command in the next couple of days. Merriam-Webster's has just released their word of the year. Gandhi is a racist. Biden and Sanders are the top contenders in 2020. The text tax has gone down in flames, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, well, seems that she needs a break. The Michael Hart Show is brought to you in part by Liberty Tech. Visit them at LibertyOneTech.com, LibertyOneTech.com. Save 15% on Text Talk Plus when you mention this program, Heart of America. We'll be telling you a whole lot more about them here in just a few moments. Phone lines are 929-477-3761. A lot to cover today. This is our, twice a week, 3 times a week edition of the Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. A very quick heads up. Tomorrow is going to be our Unknown America broadcast, and we're going to be covering unknown military history, unknown history from America's past, including the possible role that IBM played in the Holocaust, as well as the story of Alan Turing, the man behind the inspiration for the Apple logo, as well as some really just whack military history from this nation. So make certain you tune in tomorrow at Unknown America. You can find us here on the exact same channel. Yep. The president is expected to sign an executive order calling for the creation of a U.S. Space Command in the coming days, U.S. officials told Fox yesterday. The move falls short of creating a new branch of the U.S. military, a Space Force, but officials say that could absolutely be the next step. Officials have also said that they expect Vice President Pence to make the announcement today, calling for the new U.S. Space Command in a scheduled speech at the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral. NASA will not be part of the new Space Command and will remain a civilian entity, according to officials. Trump in March said that space is a war-fighting domain, just like the land, air, and sea, and we may even have a Space Force. We have the Air Force, we have the Space Force, and, the Army and Navies and things like that there. The U.S. Air Force has operated U.S. Space Command since 1982 at Patterson Air Force Base in Colorado. The new command would raise its profile, put it on par with the current combatant commands such as the U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, responsible for U.S. forces in the Middle East and Afghanistan, U.S. Special Operations Command, and the U.S. Cyber Command. The U.S. Space Command actually existed in the same capacity from 1982 to 2002 after the election. 9/11 attacks. It was moved under U.S. Strategic Command, responsible for all the U.S. military's nuclear weapons. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that over the course of, throughout the day to find out exactly what the announcement's going to be. Specifically, I don't know if it's just more Trump rattling or if it's a matter of he legitimately thinks that we're going to be fighting in outer space. You know, this is not the first time we've had these discussions. Obviously, you know, there was Reagan in the Star Wars program. We have yet to find a definition of what a space command would look like. I don't know if we're talking about Star Wars the movie-esque, or whether or not, you know, we are simply talking about an increase in satellite capability, or whatever the case may be. But I certainly cannot envision a world where we're having, you know, the R2-D2s of the world. But we'll keep an eye on that throughout the course of today and find out if there's anything that we need to reference on any of our coming broadcasts. Also, justice is Merriam-Webster's word of the year. Yeah, justice is the word of the year as selected by the people at Merriam-Webster. This year, the word was consistently among the top 20 or 30 looked-up visitors to Merriam-Webster's website, according to the editor-at-large. This is kind of an interesting thing because they've made the determination that the word of the year is justice. All right. When people are going out to Google the word justice, maybe it's just my, I don't know, quasi-weird way of thinking about things, but when I hear justice, I think of justice, blind justice, Statue of Liberty justice. If you want to go local, justice for EJ. You know, I mean, we've had all these conversations lately about what justice looks like. But is it possible that the spike in the search for the word justice was really more related to Brett Kavanaugh, or even for that matter, Ruth Ginsburg? Because, you know, as this article even points out, the opening line is, it's the job title for members of the U.S. Supreme Court, the name of a former judge's current affairs TV show, and one of the enduring goals of American democracy. So if you have a search for the word justice, it would seem to imply or indicate that perhaps people are interested in the legal system, when in actuality, they may very well just be interested in the exploits of Christine Blasey Ford and Brett Kavanaugh. So anyway, for whatever that's worth, Merriam-Webster has picked justice as the word of the year, saying that the searches were up nearly 75% over last year on a website that garners about 100 million page views a month and offers definitions for about 500,000 words, according to the editor-at-large. To be considered the word of the year, an entry has to spark both a high volume of traffic online and a significant year-over increase in lookups. Usages that were common during 2018 did include racial justice, obstruction of justice, social justice, Justice Department, as well as the previously aforementioned justice. On Saturday, Janine Pirro, host of Justice with Janine, Judge Janine, had spoke on the politics of justice, saying that we are in a dark and dangerous place in America tonight, where politics is driving our system of justice instead of us Lady Justice being blind to politics, according to Justice, which was, the subject of Justice with Judge Janine and Justice. I mean, do you see how ridiculous this gets? So anyway, Merriam-Webster's has picked out the word of the year is justice. You define justice however you choose. Only do not choose Buford T. Justice in one of the greatest movies of all time, Smokey and the Bandit. Also, staying with a little bit of just wackadoodleness, we have got more racism, which is plaguing the country. Biden and Sanders viewed as 2020 contenders among Iowa voters. Alexandria Ocasio. Oh, my God. Oh, I'm just holding on to that one. Y'all just aren't going to believe that one. And we have the tax, which has also been canceled. And we have got a lot more to talk about. Also here in just a little bit, we are going to revisit a topic that we hit on very, very briefly last week. Is free speech on our university campuses really at risk? If so, how bad is it? Where is it happening? Is your child's school among the list of the biggest offenders, and what can be done? Last week, we played some audio for you from a young lady from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. Her name is Laura Beltz, and she actually has agreed to join us this morning live to discuss free speech on college campuses and the threat to your students and their First Amendment rights. It is extraordinarily important, and I am going to also ask you a big favor. If you're listening on Twitter, if you're on Periscope, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, wherever, even if you are picking up this podcast in an archive format later today, it's like time travel. The archive hasn't yet happened, but it's gonna. So when you hear it, share it, because this is some information that we need to get out to people across this country, that our amendment rights are being attacked. And in almost every single despotic government in history, they got to the young people first. You can talk about, obviously, Hitler's Germany. We can talk about Socrates, all right? Yes, I'm malapropping. I know it's Socrates. But, you know, he was Socrates, often challenged for corrupting the youth. And in almost every single culture where there has been any kind of formative and lasting change, and sometimes it's been for the better, but anytime there's been formative and lasting change, it has typically come through the hearts and the minds and the actions of the youngest people within that civilization. So she's going to come talk to us here in just a bit about the restrictions of free speech on our campuses. You know what's really interesting about that? If you break it down to the entirely sublime, over the years, you've had professors like Ward Churchill, which has come out and made some of the biggest, pardon the expression, how can I say this politely? Oh yeah, dumbass statements that you could ever make politically speaking. And although some of these professors have in fact gotten in trouble, remember the one that came out when Barbara Bush passed away? That lovely little piece of pork that ran her mouth about how happy she was that she was glad the former First Lady had passed. And they are protected by tenure. They have, on college campuses, long valued dissenting opinion, even to the point of extremism. I literally forgot who this was. It happened, 4 or 5 years ago. But there was one professor who had advanced the notion that children should be allowed to be aborted up to 5 years after birth because they were not self-actualized. And there is a whole list, the Sustein guy, who is now a professor, I believe it's at Yale, who, as one of the cabinet members in the Obama administration, wanted to advance the notion that animals had a right to sue if they were hunted. Yeah, Cass Sunstein, remember? So professors are very, very quick to want to protect their own rights to say the most asinine things that you can imagine. However, that same is not afforded to young people on college campuses across the country. And by extension, if you restrict free speech rights at the university, you are then therefore fomenting the idea that it's acceptable in the real world. And that any time that somebody has a viewpoint that's dissentient from your own, that you have the right to shut them down with any means at your disposal. I have been doing this on the air well over a decade. And for people that were with me back when this program was on for a couple of hours a week on a Saturday afternoon in the tiny town of Birmingham, Alabama, exclusively, I told you a lot of the things that were going to be happening in this country, and they're coming to fruition right before our very eyes. The world has gone completely bat S-word crazy. Former Vice President Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are now the preferred choices of Iowa's Democrat voters going into the 2020 election. Okay. Biden, yeah, you don't want to get any of that on me, but Sanders, are we kidding? Now, let's put this over here for just a moment, and I want to give you a little bit of an idea, because the poll, which was conducted by the Des Moines Register, and CNN, by the way, revealed that 49% of Iowa's likely Democratic caucus goers believe a seasoned political hand would stand the best chance of defeating President Trump in the 2020 election. Now, there has also been some speculation that Biden will choose Beto O'Rourke as his running mate. Another political cartoon character. But just the fact that the name Bernie Sanders is on anyone's lips is mind-numbing to me. But then again, a lot of the people that are supporting, we're about to wrap this baby up, y'all. Let's tie it. Get the bow out. A lot of the people that are voting and supporting Sanders in 2020 are from where? They're either in university or they've recently departed college. In a land where conservative speech has been curtailed, they're not hearing both sides of the story. They're not getting other options. And so now they're coming back with Bernie Sanders. Do you see how almost everything, I have been preaching this for the better part of at least 10, if not 15 years. Everything you see in front of you is connected. Stories such as this are a byproduct of the lack of knowledge, not necessarily education, but knowledge and the application of knowledge, which is sometimes referred to as wisdom. We are graduating in this country an army of morons. That is not to suggest that your little Susie or your little Bobby are not smart. I've got a college student right now and one that graduated 3 or 4 years ago, and I think they're pretty sharp young ladies. But in the whole, that's whole with a W, we are graduating an army of morons that cannot think for themselves, that desire something they're not entitled to, that think the world should be a perfect place despite the fact that we're fallen, and that's completely unattainable. And then that mindset gives us the Alexandria Cortezes of the year. And this young lady, okay, in New York, liberal Democrats, strong showing amongst the young. She needs to take some time. This woman has not even been inaugurated yet. And she needs to take time for her self-care because her political responsibilities, and she's not even in office yet, have caused her to miss yoga sessions. No, I'm not kidding. There's coffee in this cup. I truly wish it was bourbon. She said yesterday that she's taken about a week off for self-care after feeling burned out and lamented that her political activity, wait for it, has changed her lifestyle. You think? I'm starting a week of self-care where I'm taking a week off and taking care of me. You know me, I'm going to get my nails done. You know how it is. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. So would appreciate any self-care tips. Do y'all know a good influencer? Because I need, like, some downtime. Like, this politicking thing is, like, hard. I mean, it's really hard. Y'all, what was I thinking? It's hard. Can't go to yoga. And this chick's going to be making laws? Yeah, this is what we've gotten in this country because we are so quick to forget. You know, how many damn Whitney Houston songs do we have to listen to before it sinks in that the young people, you know, they are the future. We have really let them down. And because of that, we now have one of them in office, and these are the things she said. I wasn't kidding about the yoga lessons, or sessions in this case. For working people, immigrants and the poor, self-care is political. Not because we want it to be, but because of the inevitable shaming of someone doing a face mask while financially stressed. So I've decided to take others along with me as I learn what self-care even means and why it's important. This is a Twitter, okay? She tweeted that. Now, this is a woman that unseated the New York Democrat Joe Crowley earlier this year during a primary election and then cruised to victory. Then went on to say that since her entry into politics and activism, she had to give up a more comfortable lifestyle. She hasn't even been given the oath of office, so she has no idea what that lifestyle is. My gosh. Before the campaign, oh, by the way, quote, before the campaign, I used to practice yoga 3 to 4 times a week, eat nutritiously, and read and write for leisure. As soon as everything kicked in, that all went out the window, y'all. Like I had to start doing stuff and things. I went from doing yoga, and this is a quote from a about-to-be United States Congresswoman. I went from doing yoga and making wild rice and salmon to eating fast food for dinner and falling asleep in my jeans and makeup. I'm just going to sit here and fiddle for a few moments. These are the kind of things that if you want to make a difference in the world around you, then you need to be talking to people about and being aware about. It's one of the reasons that we've got Laura Beltz coming on. I think she's coming up at 8:30. I legitimately do not remember. It's 8:30 or 9. And again, she's with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. You have a woman about to be given the oath of office and become a United States Congresswoman. And her biggest concern right now is that she's missed yoga classes, and she's not able to make wild rice. Okay, Democrats, how long? How long? I'm asking you literally, how long are you going to keep up this complete asinine idiocracy? How stupid can you be? This has gotten to the point where it has morphed well beyond sad, well past funny and or humorous. It has become, in my opinion, we are literally, politically speaking, in a mental health crisis, a political mental health crisis in this country. This woman, okay, and others like her, will be making determinations about whether or not to impeach a president of the United States. Determinations about funding health care. If, God forbid, we end up in some kind of military action beyond where we already are, that has to be funded. All revenue spending bills must originate constitutionally out of the House of Representatives, and this woman is going to be one of them. Oh, my God. You have got to be kidding me. Before the campaign, I went to yoga 3 to 4 times a week, read for leisure, and as soon as everything kicked up, that went out the window. I went from doing yoga and making wild rice and salmon dinners to eating fast food and falling asleep in my jeans and makeup. I keep things raw. She ain't talking food. She thinks she's being, she thinks she's being verbally savvy. I keep things raw and honest on here, since I believe public servants do a disservice to our communities by pretending to be perfect. It makes things harder for others who aspire to run someday if they think they have to be superhuman before they even try. Then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez revealed that she had decided to spend a few days in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York. And on January 3rd, this woman will become a sitting United States Congresswoman. Now, I realize you can make the argument that she's representing New York. Guess what, Alabamians, Georgians, Texans, Floridians? Her vote affects you every much as it affects somebody in New York on these nationalized policy issues. And this is why. And I might even go so far with this, because you know that we've done the Heart of America program. That's what you're listening to right now. Wednesday's Unknown America. Tomorrow's going to be Unknown Military History, things you did not know about the United States military, the role the United States played in, the evacuation of Jews during the Holocaust years, whether or not IBM played a role in that, and the story of Alan Turing and how Apple got its logo, amongst other things. Then Friday is situational security. Ways to keep yourself safe in an active shooter situation, at the workplace, at the mall, online. These are specialty programs, Wednesday and Friday. I may very well start another one, related exclusively to our college campuses and universities, if for no other reason than to force people to pay attention. Now, just yesterday, I was doing a TV program out of Birmingham, and the station owner was there, And I made a comment to him, and I've made this comment before, that in this day and time, I definitely would not want to be raising children in this world today. He agreed. But I definitely cannot imagine those children raising children in the future. Because one more generation of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's, and I'm telling you right now, you put this puppy to sleep, because the experiment known as America dies in that moment. We have been looking for statesmen and stateswomen in this country for the last several decades. And now we have a woman that has just said she doesn't know if she made the right decision, essentially, to be a United States lawmaker, because she's going to miss her damn yoga classes. Welcome to the frickin' U.S. of A. If you're a fan of The Michael Hart Show and are enjoying the daily commentary, interviews, and audio shorts, then please consider supporting the program financially. Creating a daily talk program takes a great deal of time and money. Although corporate sponsors are always welcome, the real support comes from people like you, the regular listeners. So if you support the Christian conservative message and values we share on this program and would like to help, please go to our website, michaelhartshow.com, and click on the orange Patreon button at the top of the page. For less than $7 a month, you can help us keep going while we spread our faith-based conservative views worldwide. So if you support our views, please consider supporting the program. Just go to www.michaelhartshow.com and click on the orange Patreon button, and thanks for your support and for listening. The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out The Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
It's the Michael Hart Show.
Come again?
The Michael Hart Show.
You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please.
A liberal dose of conservatism.
How'd you do that? I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
I really can't say.
Okay, you're free to go.
I've got to go away.
Understood, no means no.
This evening has been
super appropriate.
So nice.
But I do understand consent.
My mother will start to worry.
Definitely text her right now.
I will be pacing the floor.
Here's the code and there is the
so
door.
Really
I am gonna stand over
now
here.
Just a half a drink
You
more.
are in control of this
And they might
thing.
think.
Invite them over if you like.
Say, what's in this drink?
Nothing but Sprite.
I wish I knew how.
Just walk right out
to
the door.
break the spell.
I do know how to spell harassment.
No.
I hear you loud and clear.
Hey, welcome back to the Michael Hart Show, as we regale you with a little bit of baby outside. Just baby go outside, because that's the parody that was all Twitter last week, all across social media as well. Funny right there. I don't care who you are. Let me tell you now about Liberty One Tech, libertyoneTech.com. You know, it's just a long-time friend of the program. Tolly, you know, yes, when we say the Michael Hart Show is bought in part by Liberty One Tech, we mean it literally. Whether you're watching live or listening to the podcast later, Liberty One Tech is connecting the digital pipes of the Internet to help make this broadcast possible. In fact, just yesterday, I was doing some spots on some other nationally syndicated programs and sending people to heartofamerica.net to pick up a discounted copy of the book, Unknown America. So I called Tolly and asked him if he could feature the book on the front of the page. And within minutes, not only has he added the book to the front page, but even created a 3D image of the cover that I'm probably going to use on other pages just to make it look more realistic. Liberty One Tech helps the Heart of America, and Liberty One Tech can help you too. In fact, he has a special discount just for Heart of America listeners. Go to LibertyOneTech.com and learn more about the text. The Text Toss provides, VIP access to expert technology help. It's regularly only $20 a month, but listeners to this program can save 15% when you mention Heart of America. Again, that's LibertyOneTech.com, and the Talk Text Plus VIP service. Save 15% when you mention Heart of America. And as always, we thank Tolly for the wonderful work that he does. And in this particular day and time, folks, you got to have your technology in order, because that's one of the reasons that we've asked you to support the program, on Patreon if you're so compelled. And there's also a place up at there's 3 different websites. There's Michael Hart Show. There's Heart of America. .net is for everything, all the podcasts that we're doing. Michael Hart Show is just this show specifically, and then The Unknown America is where you can pick up a copy of the book. Now, we're going to do away with The Unknown America because the book is on these other places. But the point is, you got to tie all this technology together, and it can be very, very, very confusing, and that's where Tolly comes in. So it's very interesting that we've been able to do these things and grow this program, but it is an enormous amount of effort. I realize that it might not seem like it to you, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. That was the way it was with a terrestrial signal as well. So if you go to either of the websites, either heartofamerica.net, or you can go over to michaelhartshow.com and support us by clicking on the orange Patreon link. That allows us, it's $6.90. You can give us as little as $1 a month, because every little bit helps, because we want to spread the message, because this is what we're doing, folks, is talking about the future of this country. And I hate to sound whiny and cranky about it, but at the end of the day, the money's got to come from somewhere, and I don't want to have a bunch of advertisers. I've been approached by others. I'm trying to keep it as advertising free as I can, but I do have some folks out there who have products and services that I really, really, really believe in. But if you'd like to help us spread this message, because I'm going to tell you something, pandering aside, we're losing this country, gang. And if you think we're not, you're crazier than hell. I'm going to put it out there just like that. Free speech zones on our college campuses. A democratic socialist. Everybody's screaming over the years, oh my God, there's been Muslims elected to Congress. Well, democratic socialists are a much bigger threat, in my opinion, politically speaking, because they're mainstream. I mean, is that worth $6 a month to you? Is it worth $1 a month to you to help us support you? You think, well, my dollar, my dollar won't matter, or my $6 won't matter. It's the same mindset of my vote doesn't matter. It matters. It matters to us. It matters to this program. Hopefully one day it'll get to the point where it matters to the future of this country, because I'm being very serious about this. If y'all don't share this video, or audio rather, and there will be a video component coming soon, also that costs. But if y'all don't share the messages that we're putting out, because it's not just news, then we will end up going further and further and further into the abyss. I don't like sitting here and being all negative every day, but come on, this is ridiculous. We are less than 2 years away from having a real, and if you think they're not going to pull out all the stops to get Trump out of office, folks, if we hit 2020, and you've got an Alexandria Cortez, and she's not alone, by the way. You think Maxine Waters? At least Maxine Waters telegraphs her hatred and bigotry. Alexandria Cortez is just an uninformed nut. She just wanted to be a congresswoman. Years and years and years ago, back in the mid-1980s, I was a stockbroker. I was in Atlanta, Georgia. And when you're a stockbroker, the state license to sell equities, you're called a registered representative, is called a Series 63. And then there's the federal test. It's called the Series 7. And, man, I tell you what, you want to talk about a test? Yeah, this thing is 4 hours long. They got proctors walking the aisles. If you're even seen looking at your watch, you're out. I mean, they don't play because you're selling federal securities or securities that are federally protected. Anyway, take the Series 7, and I have an office mate. We'd already gone to work for this company, but we weren't licensed yet. We were just dialing the phone for the other brokers. Found out one day that both of us, his name was Alan. Alan and I both had passed. And afterwards, we were jumping through joy and whatnot. We ran to the bathroom after a little party that they had thrown for us. We're walking down the hallway, and Alan looks at me, and he says, "Oh, my God, Michael Hart, we are stockbrokers. We are going to be rich." I did okay in the brokerage industry. Of course, I got into the industry in 1987 in October, and I endured October of 1989. And I didn't last much longer than that. Why am I sharing this story from my past? Because Alan just said to me, we're going to be rich because we're stockbrokers. Alan didn't realize that, the license gave us the legal ability to do what? Show up for work. Alexandria Cortez, in her asinine statements, has demonstrated she just wants to be a congresswoman. She didn't know she had to do anything. She just thought it was cool being on TV and having people walking around behind her, wiping her backside for her, telling her how great she is. She thought she was nothing more than a political influencer, that she was going to tweet it in, that she'd Instagram her congressional votes. This is what we're getting. This is a woman that is completely devoid of the process. This is what's going on in this country today. Not to go all Ron White on you, but you can't fix stupid. So if you don't support this program or share it or whatever, or other programs as well, and tell people what you're hearing. When I say share it, I mean literally hit the share button. Or literally go over to the Patreon account. Throw a couple of dollars our way every month. It ain't going to break you, and it helps us. So your guilt trip is over. But I'm doing this essentially for free because I care. Because I'm telling you, this call is clarion call is because we are watching this country slip between our fingers in real time. Now, I realize Trump's done a lot of great things economically, but you know what Trump can't do? And we've had this conversation, even as it relates to things such as prohibition. The government has never been able to successfully regulate behavior or morality. The president can't do a darn thing about the idiocracy of voters electing a Cortez of the world. This is on us. Now, we can go and, we can go all upstate with Alexandria and not pay attention to it, ignore that it's happening, or we can get out there and fight for it. Because you got her on the precipice of becoming inaugurated. And in Iowa, one of the bellwether political states in this country, Bernie Sanders is atop the list alongside Joe Biden as the leading contenders to be president of the United States. Okay, folks. It's time to put up or shut up. We're going to be joined here in just a few moments. I believe we have Laura Beltz calling in around the 9 o'clock hour. We got our good buddy, Tolly. You must have heard me talking about him calling in. Let's see what's on his mind. Good morning, Tolly. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. Thank you. That was a very, very kind, generous statement you made there, and I appreciate that. Now I'm going to run everyone that possibly was considering. Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to run everyone that was possibly considering me as a business off, because I'm going to say that we need to impeach Donald Trump. I mean, we just honestly need to impeach Donald Trump. Here's why, before they tune out and start hating him too much. If you impeach the president, Hillary Clinton doesn't become president, no matter how much these liberals want to desperately get her in there, which is what they want. They just want to just rewrite the Constitution. Mike Pence becomes president. And you know what happens if you get a Mike Pence presidency, Michael? I think you get Donald Trump's policies, minus the Twitter comments, minus the philanderings, minus the paying off porn stars.
Holly, it's a valid observation.
You get what we wanted in the policies. You get a deal maker. You get a business guy. I mean, he was governor. He wasn't just some senator from Chicago. He was a governor. You get someone that could do the Donald Trump presidency without the Donald Trump damage. Look, I respect the people that have worked and are working in the Trump White House, but he's not getting past the scandals. And unlike Reagan, he can't get past his TV past. He can't stop being a TV star. Reagan, when he got in office, he brought some dignity to the office. And I was hoping that Donald Trump could do that he could bring that lighthearted air of a charismatic personality, but put aside the TV past long enough to be presidential. We don't have a very presidential president right now. Maybe he's bringing back jobs, but I don't know. If you looked at the market lately, you might be worried about that future too. And Ron Paul said that the stock market could still be correcting down to 50%. It could be the next Great Depression. I don't know if I'd go that far, but we know that the Federal Reserve has inflated this bubble all the way up, and all bubbles have to pop eventually. So if it does pop, I hope they just let the liquidation happen and don't try to correct for it. But I think we need to impeach Trump. Join the Democrats, impeach him for all the Russian scandals, for all the lying, even if the lies weren't that big of a deal. Get Mike Pence in there. The only other alternative I think would be good is if in 2020, and I told Dr. Gina this, I don't know if it's on your show or just in person or whatever, but I told Dr. Gina, I think Trump is going to get a primary, a component. I think he's going to get some opposition in the 2020 primary. I think John Kasich is going to run. I think Mitt Romney is going to run. And, the only other situation I might enjoy as much as Mike Pence becoming president would be Rand Paul Rand Paul becoming the nominee. Because I think, Rand got a really good head on his shoulders, a little more presidential. Maybe not such a great hair job either. I don't know. What do you think, Michael? Should we impeach Trump? Get Mike Pence in there?
I'm against impeachment only because of it creates security issues in the country. Tolly, I do understand replacing Trump. From my perspective, it would make more sense to just try to compel him to not run for re-election and get a Mike Pence in there. And so, the idea, again, of impeaching the president, I know you're being somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but the idea of impeaching the president has, such an upheaval to it, and we've seen how it will really just rip the country up, politically speaking. And right now, I think there's too many political wounds in this country to open that up, and we don't need a political melee at this particular point in time because it does create national security issues for the country. But that said, man, it sure would be nice to have a scandal-free presidency, and I think you would get that with Pence. I don't think there's any chance in the world that, Bernie Sanders is going to upend this administration or Pence for that matter. But I got to tell you something. And, I was kind of having fun with, Alexandria here, but most of what I read was true. She really is complaining that being Congresswoman is keeping her from making wild rice and going to yoga classes. I'm sorry. That is absolutely millennial, and I know you are one. I am not going to archetype you, but that is absolutely dead on exactly what we would expect from somebody who has the IQ of a ramen noodle, because that's what we are raising in this country today, and that's the kind of president that they want. That is a direct threat to this nation. Now, can a Trump stand in defiance of that? I don't know that he is the man. I think Pence may very well be. Trump brings, you've got to have, and this kind of came up last night on a TV program, talking about this pastor that bought his wife this car, the $200,000 Lamborghini. And somebody had brought up the issue of being beyond reproach. Trump is not beyond reproach. So if you're going to fight the wackiness of the Democrat socialist movement in this country, you do have to have somebody that is beyond reproach, and that might be a Pence, but I think we're going to have to, pardon the expression, Biden our time and wait for him to get into office.
Oh, that was good. Well, I gotta go eat some yogurt and start doing some. I gotta go, eat yogurt and start doing some yoga. So I'll
go get that salmon on that. What do they call those little wooden boards you cook fish on? Whatever it is, go get you some salmon and slap it on there. Tolly, thanks for the call. I appreciate it so very much. Let's get over here to Clark's call. Good morning, Clark. How are you?
Hey, Michael, how are you?
I am just wonderful.
Good deal. So, I'm going to have to disagree with Tolly on impeach Donald Trump. And the reason why is it would not matter, you name any Republican. If they had beaten Hillary Clinton, they would be beset just as much as Donald Trump has been by allegations, controversy, scandals, et cetera, et cetera. That is just Democrat playbook. It does not matter. Now, like you say, Donald Trump is not above reproach, but we went into this with eyes wide open. We knew exactly what we were getting. Anybody that claims otherwise, I don't know, needs to go see an optometrist or something.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue that.
Because we all knew who Donald Trump was, and Donald Trump is what we wanted, and frankly, Donald Trump is what we needed. The other thing is, name me a Republican, just one, a nationally prominent Republican that would have withstood the onslaught that Donald Trump has withstood so far and would not have folded and be folded up crying in the shower. I don't think there is one, Michael.
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
Now, the other thing, the reason the left really, really doesn't like Donald Trump is he's just about playing by their rules of engagement. And they do not know how to handle that. He hits back.
No, and that's a good point.
We had 8 years of George W. Bush, who was presidential. He was a presidential punching bag. And he just let them pound on him for 8 years. And in doing so, the Republican brand was damaged so badly that we got Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and Barack Obama all in the same cycle. Republicans are going to have to learn that they have to fight back. If they want to do something for this country, they're going to have to fight for it. Oh, and I don't know. Getting rid of Donald Trump and having Mike Pence in, I think Mike Pence is a fine man. I think he'd make a good president. I think the left would be after him just the same as they are Donald Trump. They would just have to manufacture different stories.
Oh, they would definitely be after him. I mean, that's the Democratic playbook. I mean, there's no way to give up that strategy.
There's nothing that Donald, and again, I have to wonder if Donald Trump was not the way he is, would he have been as successful as advancing the agenda as he has been?
I think a big part of his appeal, Clark, is that so many people in this country, it's like in the, what was the name of that movie some years ago, FM or whatever it was, I'm madder than hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. There was a lot of those voices. I'm sorry?
Network,
that's it. I'm sorry, you're right. There were so many of those voices that were not being heard in this country. I think that a big part of his appeal is he gave voice to that growing sentiment in this country. And because of it, people are going to reward President Trump with their loyalty. So I don't disagree. I mean, I think that, he certainly, I've said it before. One of the things that he's got a problem with the Democrats. He's a better Democrat than most Democrats because at the end of the day, he's not a conservative Republican. I mean, he is a national populist with Democrat leanings, but he's a fiscal conservative, and that's what we needed.
Well, as you say, Donald Trump is by no means a conservative, but name me the last person that advanced our agenda like Donald Trump has done. I don't think Reagan pushed the ball as far down the field as Donald Trump has. Certainly not against what Donald Trump has had to push against. Yeah,
and I agree. I think that, in Reagan's situation, I think he could have if forced to, but he didn't have to push it quite as far. I mean, you got to bear in mind the disastrous administration that preceded him. Now, I realize you could also make the argument that the Obama administration was disastrous, but even Democrats can't argue that Jimmy Carter was not disastrous. And so, I think Reagan came along at a time where even the Democrats wanted the country repaired. And we don't get that with Donald Trump. People, they resent undoing Obama's legacy. Democrats almost demanded that Reagan undo Carter's.
Well, Democrats were not completely anti-American when we got finished with Jimmy Carter.
No, they weren't.
I would argue that we are at that point now. They have been misled to the point where America is the problem for most of the ills of the world, and we don't need to be a strong country, et cetera, et cetera. And it's unfortunate that we've allowed ourselves to get in this situation, but it's where we are.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Clark, good call. I appreciate you making it.
You take care, man.
You too. I know y'all get tired of hearing me telling you that the past matters, but the past matters. And I'm talking about understanding how far this country. Let me stop in mid-thought there and just make this point. Is it a true statement on my part that most of the people in this country that are the most freaked out about what's going on in this country are the older Americans, whether or not they be 40, 45, or 65, 75, 80? Do you feel that most of the outspokenness or the conservatism on the right is in the older generations? You know who I'm talking about, the folks that turn on Fox News in the morning and never turn it off. There's a reason for that. It's because the older you are, the further the fall has been witnessed. See, these young people, they don't have the reference of time. They don't have the reference of experience. Those of us that are in our 50s and 60s and 70s, we see how ridiculously far this has come. You've got so many people out there, and that's why you have the Alexandria Cortezes of the world. Because they don't know any better. They can't speak to Reagan. They can't recollect Jimmy Carter in a time where he had a moratorium on Muslim countries while the Iran hostage crisis was going on. They don't remember all the debates that have taken place over the last many decades on immigration and people coming across our southern border. There's no recollection there. And so when you're looking at the Cortezes of the world, that's a good idea. And these are people that are also in possession and ownership of yoga pants. You see, if Alexandria is missing her yoga classes, and you've got people over here that are apt to be in yoga classes, or they're doing Pilates or whatever, they understand her angst. as opposed to Granddaddy who gets his exercise swinging an axe. It's all a matter of perception. And that's why it's important to spread the message. And I do believe, I know for a fact, it starts on our college campuses. At least politically speaking. Character starts at home and from day one. We're going to take a really quick break. We come back on the other side. Laura Beltz of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education is going to join us. And we're going to be talking a bit about free speech in our college campuses, what's going on. We have that, across this state, across the southeastern United States, real challenges in the expression and the silencing of expression. Just to give you a little bit of taste, before we take our top of the hour break, little thoughts from Laura Beltz and some, comments that we had gotten into last week.
Colleges should be a place for open debate and intellectual inquiry. But today, almost all colleges silence expression through policies that are often illiberal and at public institutions unconstitutional.
Does your home have a water problem? Drainage around your home can cause all kinds of headaches. Disease-causing mold, cracks in walls, foundation failure, even roof leaks. At Alabama Water Management, we know that problems can often be fixed from where the water is coming from, outside. Our approach is less invasive and less expensive. So, before you spend thousands on a potentially unnecessary waterproofing system, call Alabama Water Management for a free evaluation. Alabama Water Management. Don't waterproof, water prevent.
Find Alabama Water Management on Facebook or on their website at alah2o.com. The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
Anyone can tell you the news.
We welcome Diamond and Silk.
Mark Zuckerberg gonna end up, and it's gonna be a face without the book.
Book without the face.
Hey, Megan, how are you?
Now they're chipping away at the normalization of pedophilia, and the left is embracing this type of behavior.
We welcome Dinesh D'Souza.
I know I ticked him off. In a certain sense, it's a giant up yours to Obama, and that's why the left is freaking out over it.
Jack Kennedy and LBJ, Clinton, and the double standard from the left.
Yeah, I love how the left does nothing but push the most bizarre practices down our throats and up our tailpipes.
It takes a real man to tackle the hot issues that really matter.
Michael Hart is the man of this house.
Welcome to the Michael Hart Show.
Hey, welcome back. We started this conversation last week, and we are going to continue it on today. You'd heard some of the audio from last week's program, and of course, also some that we had played, more of it last week, and I guess it was Tuesday's edition of the program, and that was a statement made by Laura Beltz of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. And I'll tell you that what really caught my attention when I heard from this particular group is the fact that they had taken a look at universities and graded them, universities across the country. And they've sent me information on universities right here in the state of Alabama. And atop the list, for those that they had expressed less or concern for was Auburn University, and you guys know that I am an Auburn fan, and I have an Auburn graduate in the family. But the group, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, is a group that's gone and put out a brand new report and study that has ranked freedom of speech, First Amendment rights on universities across the country. I personally believe that those restrictions are one of the biggest threats to the future of this nation. And to help us break it down a little bit further, we welcome Laura Beltz of the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, which, by the way, the acronym is FIA. So go check them out with more information on that here in just a second. Hey, Laura, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. Well, we already kind of had you here last week. You just didn't know it. We had a bunch of the audience. Tell us a bit about the organization itself, and then let's talk about the problem of free speech.
Sure. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit group defending student and faculty free speech and due process rights. So if speech is protected, we'll defend it regardless of where it's coming from across the political spectrum. Each year we release this annual report discussing the major trends that we see in our Spotlight database of schools, which is a database that covers all the policies that regulate expression at over 450 top colleges across the country. And we rate those on this traffic light scale, with green light policies being the best, yellow light policies being kind of these vague restrictions on speech, and then red light policies being clear and substantial restrictions on free speech based on these First Amendment legal standards. And unfortunately, we're finding that most schools are falling into this yellow or red light category, meaning that their policies are not complying with those First Amendment standards and are unduly restricting student rights.
Let me ask you what might seem like an obvious question, and I hope I'm going to phrase it the right way. Are these actions intentional? I guess what I'm asking, Laura, is do these schools know what they're doing purposely, or is it just a byproduct of an other policy or program that they have not thought through?
I think both is true, honestly. I think that sometimes these policies are lingering around on the books and the administrators don't even know about them. We see it a lot with policies like the Residence Hall Handbook will have a policy on harassment. The legal office will have one. The Student Handbook will have a harassment definition in it. And some of these might actually meet the Supreme Court standard for harassment, but others are phrased so broadly that they include all kinds of protected speech. So I think you have those situations where they don't even know what's on the books. But in other cases, I do think that they know that these policies exist, and that they think it's just easier to deal with things like protests if you make students apply for them 2 weeks in advance. It shuts down speech, and that can be easier, I think, for some administrators. But we put out this report every year to make sure that administrators do know what policies are on the books, and so that they can work to fix them.
Over the course of I've been doing this program for over 10 years, and over the course of the last many, many, many years, I've had the opportunity to interview pretty much everybody that you see on the news. And one of my favorite interviews, and he speaks on college campuses very frequently, is Milo Yiannopoulos. And I've always been very confused, Laura, as to why the backlash. I understand there's political differences, and I respect people's ability to have, or their right to have, political differences. But what benefit do you think it serves any given university to try to silence the discourse or prevent political conversations or discussions on our college campuses? Because, one of the things that we had talked about earlier today was the right that many professors enjoy of tenure, which essentially protects them in their comments, their research, etc., from any kind of formal backlash. At least it offers them a measure of protection. But there doesn't seem to be any other kind of tenure on our college university campuses, in the fact that if anybody's offended, that all of a sudden the university will respond, I guess, in a matter to repeal that offense if they could, or lessen it, to the extent of even keeping the Milos of the world off campus or at least segregated to a corner of the campus? What benefit is there in that, if any?
Right, and we don't see a benefit there. I mean, colleges should be these centers of intellectual debate. And so as a college, if you hear that students don't want a particular speaker to come onto campus, the right response is not to say, okay, we will disinvite him. The better response is to say, well, why don't you guys set up some kind of counter event? Why don't you set up a debate? How about students go and ask questions during the Q&A? These are all actions that actually help stimulate that intellectual debate, help students grow and educate themselves in their opinions and share opinions, whereas if you instead just disinvite the person, students don't get that opportunity to learn and grow. And even if students walk away not having changed their minds at all, maybe they'll have changed other people's minds. But again, if you just shut that down entirely, you lose that opportunity.
Now, I know in the report that was put out by Fire that you guys have created somewhat of a rating system. I believe, one of the ratings is red, another one of them is yellow. Can you give us, if we want to pull the report down, because I want you to tell us here in a moment where we can, but can you give us an idea of what the ratings signify, what they stand for?
Sure. Well, those red light ratings are policies that are clearly and substantially restricting free speech. So that's something like on their face, they restrict constitutionally protected expression. So an example of that, at Troy University in Alabama, they ban offensiveness flat out, and say that insensitive language is unacceptable. Those are such broad terms that they clearly include constitutionally protected speech, so they get that red light rating. But a more yellow light rated policy, to give you an example, would be something like banning verbal abuse. Because verbal abuse could be something like harassment that isn't protected by the First Amendment, but it could also just be something that someone found subjectively abusive, but that is protected. So that's kind of the difference between those two ratings. But the problem is that about 90% of schools are getting either that yellow rating or that red light rating. Very few schools are in that green light zone.
What do you think has been the impetus to this nationwide? Is it just a matter of universities attempting to respond to, things like bullying or keeping the peace or not wanting riots and protests on the campuses? Or is it a legitimate effort on our universities to begin to try to craft some political discourse or even silence it?
Well, I think it can be some of both. I think that schools do want to respond to the concerns of their students, of course. So if they hear from students that they don't want to be offended by speakers that they walk by on the quad, then they're going to craft a policy like that. But they do also receive a lot of pressure, not just from students, but from everyone, especially with public Twitter accounts from universities, that kind of thing. They do receive a lot of pressure from alumni, donors, so they're really hearing all these messages from all sides, and I think that they often go with these middling approaches that don't actually protect free speech and that don't really solve the issue that they were trying to get at in the first place. So we try to work with universities so they can develop a policy that does meet their concerns about misconduct, but that also fully protects student free speech rights, so that they're not doing this kind of middling approach that doesn't help anyone.
Is a free speech zone a violation of the First Amendment?
Absolutely. I mean, these free speech zones tell students that they can only protest in one small out of the area on the campus. And under First Amendment legal standards, schools can put in place what are called time, place, and manner restrictions. So they can say something like, you can't get outside of a classroom building during classroom hours and yell on a megaphone, and that's reasonable and makes sense because class still has to go on. But they can't say that you can only be in this time tiny area out of the way on campus. That's not reasonable. And you know, under the First Amendment, they simply can't restrict student rights to that extent. But as we've discussed, it does tend to make things easier for administrators if a protest is cordoned off in this little area. And so I think that's the motivation there. We instead invite schools to open up all publicly available outdoor areas to protest.
One of the things that has concerned me, and I referenced this earlier today, and I don't know how old you are, Laura, and I don't care for the purposes of this conversation, but what I'm alluding to is, as you get older in your life, it can be your relationships, this country, you know, how fat you got, whatever the case may be. As you get older, you have more and more and more experiences in life to where you can see how far something has shifted, you know, again, whether it's public policy or your waistline. And I'm curious because when I look at what you're talking about, I see how far we have come in this country from the times when, you know, free speech on college campuses wouldn't have even been debated because it was just accepted as the norm. It would have never have even been an issue. Do you, in your studies and your work, do you think that a lot of these young people on these campuses realize how much their rights have eroded and how much of a threat that can actually be, not just to this country, but to their own future?
You know, I think that they don't all the time, and I think there are a couple of reasons for that. A lot of these policies that we identify in this report, we'll hear from students that they're not actually being enforced or that they're not being enforced equally. So say a school has some kind of policy where they say you have to get permission 10 days in advance before protesting. Maybe some students are told they need to follow that and others aren't. Of course, a more controversial protest is going to attract the administrator's eye more often than not. But that aside, students say, oh, it's not even being enforced. What's the problem? But the problem is that, you know, maybe there's an administrator around that is pretty speech protective, but administrators change at colleges all the time. So the next person that comes in might not be so free speech protective. So that's why we try to get these policies fixed up, because I don't think students are even realizing how dangerous they can be when on the books. But I also think that unfortunately college administrators are taking their cue from students when they hear these things, because the policies are largely getting better. When we did this report in 2009, we found that 75% of schools got that worst red light rating, and now it's only 28.5% of schools getting the red light rating. So we've really gone a long way in getting these worst policies fixed up. But unfortunately, as the policies got better and better, we're finding more and more students seem to be asking for restrictive policies. So one of our big initiatives now is to get free speech principles instruction into high school curriculum, because we think that if we reach students before they get to college, they're going to be more willing to embrace free speech ideas and to value them.
Well, that's actually a wonderful point, and I applaud you for that, because you know we've seen over the the last several centuries, you know, in this world, that some of the most despotic governments have, you know, restricted speech first and foremost, and I guess from my perspective, I'm not even as concerned about the restrictions that are out there as much as the acceptance of the restrictions on our college campuses. And, you know, and I do occasionally speak on college campuses, and I'm actually a historian by in addition to this program, and I love talking about American history. And there are certain colleges, and I've never dealt with this before, Laura, until the last couple of years. There's a couple of colleges that I feel a little uneasy going to, just because of the fact that although, you know, I am a Republican conservative. I'm actually a social moderate, but I'm a fiscal conservative. But, you know, I don't want to be labeled as the conservative historian, if that makes any sense,
right.
You know, because, you know, when it comes to history, there's no conservatism or liberalism. It just is what it is. But now all of a sudden, I feel like I have to lead with that explanation. So anyway, you know, hopefully, and again, I applaud your work, because hopefully we can wake some of these younger folks up to understand that anything that they espouse on their universities and their campuses, you know, we are birthing a generation out into the workforce that values the silencing of opinion. And that's a major concern for me. Now, that might seem like an excessive comment to you, but that's been somewhat of the end result of what I've seen over the years. Because, you know, when you go to college, when you go to a university, you know, I'm going to say, I don't know, 30, 40% of what you learn is not inside the classroom. You know, you're learning social skills and mores and you know, how to make a great martini, for that matter. But, you know, there's so many cultural lessons that they're learning on these campuses, and I'd hate for them to learn that silencing dissent is acceptable because you might deem it offensive. So, before we lose time here, because I want you to give us an idea where we can get a copy of the report, in kind of the larger sense, leaving the universities behind, is there such a thing as hate speech? Is there any kind of speech out there that should not be constitutionally protected? Is it fair game for all? I mean, does your organization have an opinion on some of the most outlandish and offensive speech? And I know I'm taking you off the campuses for a minute, but I just want to kind of get your personal opinion on that.
Oh, sure. I mean, generally, there are exceptions to the First Amendment. It isn't truly a free-for-all under current legal standards. Harassment isn't protected by the First Amendment. True threats, incitement to violence. There are these carved out categories of speech that the Supreme Court has deemed not worthy of constitutional protection. And so it's our effort to try to take these policies at universities and get them up to those stringent legal standards, because those are the kind of areas that are causing students harm. Like, the harassment standard demands that conduct must be so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that a student is denied institutional opportunities. So that means that if you're sitting in class and a student turns to another student and tells them one offensive joke, that's not going to meet that harassment standard. But if they do it every single day, despite the protest of the other student, now that starts looking like harassment. So there are obviously lines that we can draw and that have been drawn for us by Supreme Court precedent, that, yeah, absolutely, there is speech and conduct that is not and should not be constitutionally protected. We just need to get these college policies matching those standards.
So, baby, it's cold outside. It's not hate speech.
Not in my opinion, no.
I'd have to agree. All right, Laura, unfortunately, we're out of time. Love to talk to you again very, very, very soon. You just do a wonderful, wonderful job. It was very informative. If folks want to check out their kids' school, because, you know, although we broadcast nationwide, we're coming to you from Southeastern Conference territory, and we take our universities very, very seriously here, as I'm sure you do wherever in your home as well. But if we want to pick up a copy of the report and check out our individual colleges, where can we go to?
Sure, you can go to FIRE's website, thefire.org, to look that up. And if you want to look up your specific school in our database, which is kept currently updated, you can go to thefire.org/spotlight. And that's where you can look up your school and see how they're doing compared to others.
Very good. Laura, wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for popping by today. We definitely want to get you back on the program very, very, very soon.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, you guys go check out the website, download a copy of the report. Actually, you don't even have to download it. You actually click in, put in your individual school, and find out more. Also, I want to invite you to check out the book, Unknown America. I'm going to keep it discounted down at $15. No shipping, comes out autographed. I'll even send you a copy of the Constitution with it as well. Just go over to heartofamerica.net. It's right there on the top of the page. Tolly made that happen last evening. You don't even have to go to the Unknown America. Just go to heartofamerica.net, click on the Buy Now button. It'll take you straight over to the PayPal page. And all you got to do is enter in your information, and it'll ship out of here in the next day or two. I cannot guarantee shipping in time for Christmas, as we are so late in the Christmas season, but it's great information talks a bit about the history of this country and some of the just completely asinine stuff that's going on in the world around us. Also, we'll remind you tomorrow is Unknown American History. Unknown America is going to be talking about the unknown military history in this country, including the contributions of a scientist out of Britain. I know it's American history, but it affects us here at home. His name was Alan Turing, and the amazing contributions that he made to technology and how he is being honored by one large American tech company. Also, we'll be talking about the role that IBM might have unwittingly played in the extermination of Jews during the Holocaust, as well as some very, very, very wacky military plans like Operation Kitty. Yeah, we'll get into that, as well as bats as bombs and all kinds of theatrics of war. So we've got Cold War Kitty coming up, IBM, Alan Turing, and so much more. And so make plans to tune in tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And finally, to just give you a little bit of idea of how wacky the world has gotten, apparently Mahatma Gandhi was a racist. Gandhi statue has been removed from an African university over claims of racism. After a wave of opposition and a petition drive that cited views deemed racist and offensive against Africans, a statue of Indian independence leader Mahatma Gandhi was removed this week from a university campus in Ghana. Gandhi was one of the most celebrated figures of the 20th century for his peaceful protests in his quest for Indian sovereignty. However, in Africa, some remember him as someone who thought of Africans as savages who were beneath the British and the Indians. This, according to the Washington Post. Share that story only with you because you will find racism, bigotry, misogyny, and xenophobia, hatred anywhere you search for it. So now we add Gandhi to the long list of haters here in the world around us today, which is kind of what Laura was talking to us about, the, being offended in this country and how pervasive it seems to be. That's it for us. Go check out the book at heartofamerica.net. We'd appreciate the support of the program if you want to click over there to the Patreon button. Oh, by the way, if you want to get yourself a deal, anybody that actually goes onto the Patreon button and supports the program at the $6.95 level, we will send you a copy of Unknown America absolutely free. That is quite a deal. So go over to the Patreon tab, which, by the way, when you do that, I don't get your shipping information immediately, so I'm going to have to email you. Once you support the program, I'll email you your address and or for your address, and we'll ship the book out toot sweet. But, yeah, go over there and support us at Patreon at the $6.95 a month level, and absolutely free. The moment you do it, we'll get a copy of Unknown America out to you. Compliments of us, even no shipping or handling there as well. So there's also a multi-book purchase order over at theunknownamerica.com, theunknownamerica.com. You can buy the book as cheaply as $12 if you buy them in bundles of 5 or more. We appreciate your support of that project. Children's version is coming up here in about a month as well, Unknown America for Kids. So you'll be able to share the book with those in a manner which is friendly to the tender ears and eyes of anywhere from 8 to 14 years of age. And they also are working on a board game version and volume number 2. So a lot going on. All those things take time. They take energy. They take effort. So we would appreciate your support. That's it for us. Thank you to Liberty One Tech for making this program possible. Thank you to the callers. Thank you to Laura Beltz of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. Back with you tomorrow with the Unknown America. You've been listening to The Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Broadcasting Network. Please share the program, and we'll be back with you tomorrow at 8.
I really can't stay.
Okay, you're free to go.
I've got to go away.
Understood, no means no.
This evening has been
super appropriate.
So nice.
But I do understand consent.
My heart will start to worry.
Definitely text her right now.
I will be pacing the floor.
Here's the code and there is the
so
door.
Really
I am gonna stand over
now
here.
Just a half a drink
You
more.
are in control of this
And
thing.
they might think
Invite them over if you like.